If you're an HVAC technician and a call comes in, Grainger knows that you need a partner that helps you find the right product, fast and hassle-free. And you know that when the first problem of the day is a clanking blower motor, there's no need to break a sweat. With Grainger's easy-to-use website and product details, you're confident you'll soon have everything humming right along. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday. Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And we are coming to you here on a big night in Birdland as the Orioles reportedly agree to terms with first baseman Pete Alonso on a 5-year, $155 million deal, bringing the first major free agent signing of the Mike Elias era and a legitimate middle-of-the-order bat to a team trying to rebound from a disappointing 2025 season. We're going to break that down and more news that came out of this week's winter meetings. But first, let's just get into Pete Alonso, a well-known player in baseball at this point. Been with the Mets since 2019 and been a reliable power hitter over the course of his career, and coming off of a 2025 season that in some respects was his best, as he hit a career-high 272 with 38 home runs to go with a 141 WRC plus and a career-high exit velocity of 93.5 miles per hour. And in fact, as I'm sure we're going to get into tonight, if you dig under the hood with Alonso, the batted ball data backs up the legitimate power that he has shown over the course of his career, which has seen him belt 264 homers since his Rookie of the Year debut 2019 season with the Mets. Alonso had been a free agent a year ago, but after a disappointing turn in the market, signed a multi-year contract with the Mets that allowed him to opt out after the 2025 season. The bet on himself paid off, and he was able to get a big 5-year deal from the Orioles. There were reportedly other suitors in the mix, including the Red Sox and the Cubs, but in the end, the Orioles win out on Pete Alonso. Nick, I want to start with you here. I think the three of us have been kind of approaching this offseason with maybe tentative or cautious optimism because we know everything the Orioles are saying publicly about the need to do something big, both for their lineup and for their pitching staff. But after last season's relatively slow and ultimately disappointing offseason, we didn't want to get our hopes up too much. But yet here we are on December 10th with one of the biggest moves of the offseason by any team so far being right here in Baltimore.
Yeah, this is we can have the rational conversation in a moment. My initial thought is just it's about goddamn time. Like the Baltimore Orioles, we are sitting here. I thought we were gonna have to figure out how do we get 45 minutes out of Justin Armbruster going to the New York Mets in the Rule 5 draft. But the Orioles have landed one of the premier free agents in the class. We don't have to try to twist this anyway. This is just as straightforward as it gets. Pete Alonso is a masher. And after all the being connected to, interested in, have contacted, well, all the yada, 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 like it's finally the Orioles who came out on top and got that guy. And it feels good. Like I need this high every single day because like honestly, Tuesday, I didn't feel great. We touched on this really briefly before we went live here, but this is why I didn't feel great on Tuesday because, of course, the rumors start swirling, and yeah, like it's the off season, it's the winter meeting time. Everybody's talking to everybody. Every reporter is any thought that comes to their head, they gotta tweet it out. But going back to Tuesday, this whole Kyle Schwarber thing, like I scroll through, I see the announcement, he signs with the Phillies. Like, cool, not a shocker. Get back to work. Until I saw the tweet that listed out like the offers for Schwarber. And I don't know why, but seeing the Orioles there matching that 5 for 150, and I started to feel like crap, to be completely honest. And this isn't like a Kyle Schwarber thing. This isn't a Mike Elias thing. I knew the Phillies were going to match. Everyone knew he was going back to the Phillies. Like this was his last chance to get paid and win. Why would you uproot the family? I don't know if he's married or has kids or not, but why would you uproot the family? Like you're gonna have to be irresponsible to get him away from the Phillies. But it was just that fact of like, I've told you guys a couple of times off air. I wasn't as bold as John last week in saying it on air, but off air that like this offseason did feel different, but like shove that down. Like, you're an Orioles fan. That's not how you feel in the offseason. And then that Taylor Ward trade, you start to feel a little bit different. Like, okay, this is a very un-Orioles like trade. Trade a young starter for 1 year of an outfield reliever. Maybe this is going to be different. Then they land their closer immediately from the jump. Okay, this is definitely getting a little bit serious here. But seeing that Schwarber tweet, I don't know, for whatever reason, it just like hit me. I just started like feeling a little miserable. Just like, when is it going to break the Orioles' way? And again, it wasn't Schwarber specifically, but just somebody. And rational me knew like there were still all the free agent targets and trade targets we've been talking about for weeks now are all still there. The winter meetings weren't even done yet. Everything is still there, but it just, I don't know. Maybe it was just because of Tuesday. I don't know. But the we tried thing is just, it's exhausting, even if you fully understand how free agency works and all this stuff. But today we get the big hit, and it's like a big hit of polar bear energy right into the veins. And my whole mindset now is like, who's next? Like, who's getting the next $100+ million? Who are we trading for? It's just like earmuffs. If you're listening to this tomorrow morning, like with little ones in the car, but like, it feels so fucking good to know that this isn't the last show of this magnitude that we're going to have this offseason. And like, Pete Alonso is an Oriole right now.
Yeah, totally understand what you're saying. Like, it was even though there was a lot of different, even the quotes are different, the reporting, it feels very different. Like, literally every player, the Orioles are aggressively pursuing this and interested in this. But it was so reminiscent of last season when I thought the same thing. It was like, okay, Snell signed, but there's still this. Okay, Burns went to the Diamondbacks, but we still have this possibility. Well, it just seemed like it was going to be Charlie Brown with football again this year after the Schwarber thing for a minute there. But yeah, we can officially say it's different. David Rubenstein opened up the checkbook. Mike Elias went out and fucking did it, and he got Pete Alonso to sign a contract. And if it honestly feels like a dam has just broke, like stigma is gone. Now it's like proved you can do it. Other players see that we did it, that a player agreed to do this. Like, bring it on. And my favorite tweet, which is crazy because it's Bob Nightingale and it's like the least reliable reporter ever, but it's not just him. You've been hearing this over and over again, but I thought his tweet was pretty exciting. I don't have it pulled up, but it was something like, despite just signing Pete Alonso for 5 years, $155 million, the Orioles are still aggressively pursuing a top free agent pitcher and players in trades. And like, basically like, we're just getting started, which maybe that's not exactly the case, but that's what it kind of feels like right now. It's exciting that it just seems like we're going to be a team that's comfortable having around a $200 million payroll moving forward. That's just what it feels like. And that's exciting for a lot of reasons. And obviously don't want to go crazy, but if we can sign a top line pitcher, make a trade for another pitcher, and we can mess around with some extensions, that's a little bit more realistic moving forward. Like, maybe Trevor Rogers will sign an extension now if he knows that we're willing to spend this kind of money. We have an offense to support him. It's only positives, even though I do think we overpaid for Alonso, but that's just what you got to do. Maybe Elias finally realized, you know what? Enough being old Houston Astros, old rebuilding Orioles under the Angelos ownership. David Stearns might have to learn this lesson soon too. But Elias finally realized, look, I'm Andrew Friedman now. You can't win unless you go a little bit over your limit.
I went back and listened to an episode from a few weeks ago. We got a question from a listener, our mailbag. And by the way, shout out Bird is the word. I think this was the first major hypothetical move that has come across in a mailbag that actually happened. So congrats to the Bird is the word. But I went back and I listened to that question of, what, would you sign Pete Alonso, and if so, for how much? And I said at the time that I thought that it was going to take 5 years to sign Alonso because the Mariners had just signed Josh Naylor a week or so before we recorded that episode. The Phillies come out and signed Kyle Schwarber. And it's like, all right, I have to push myself outside my normal comfort zone here because that's just the price to pay, or the price to pay right now to play the game of free agency. And the Orioles, sure enough, go in and get Alonso. I felt decent. And we were just talking about this before we came on air. I made a joke about the Orioles signing Pete Alonso on our draft lottery thing. It was mostly a joke, but it was also kind of the back of my mind. I think this is possible unless this whole trip through free agency is to get the Mets to finally pay up. And then it turns out the Mets reportedly weren't really in on him all along because I guess of other payroll obligations they have. So the Orioles managed to keep him away from Boston, land their major free agent, and add a middle of the order bat that right now you can pencil in for cleanup spot every night, 150 to 160 games. He's been incredibly durable, and probably 35 to 40 homers year one. I think that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, honestly, just looking at Pete Alonso, I never really done like a huge deep dive on him personally ever, but just looking at it, like the metrics are great. I mean, there are certainly things that he doesn't do well, but hitting the ball hard, swinging the bat hard, he does those pretty darn well. And yeah, I'm just looking at his career. He's going to walk 9 to 10% of the time. That's fine. He actually doesn't strike out as much as I thought he did. He only struck out between 20 and 23% of the time for the most part throughout his career since 2021. He's putting up 120 to 140 WRC pluses. He's going to hit you 30 plus home runs, almost guaranteed. He's done it. What is this? 5 years in a row, 6 out of the last 7. I said it. Topping out at 53. He had 38 home runs last year. Park factors say if he played all his games at Camden Yards, that would have been 45. We know the power is there. Just a perfect cleanup hitter, maybe 3-hole hitter. A lot of protection for guys at the top of the order like Gunnar Henderson. I think that might help him out. And yeah, this lineup is just, it's really looking metrically sexy right about now.
Yeah, that's, I mean, he's one of the most top 3, top 4 prolific home run hitters in baseball. Who led the Orioles in home runs last year? 17. Pete Alonso hit more than double that. Yeah, I agree. You can pencil in 35 to 40 plus home runs, 30 plus doubles as well, like a true middle of the order bat. And we thought Taylor Ward was the impact bat the organization wanted and was going to help this lineup. Like that was just the appetizer. Pete Alonso is also one of those guys, to me, I don't know if you guys feel this way. Pete Alonso is also one of those guys where I thought he was a lot older than what he is. I mean, he's 31. He's not young, but I was thinking like he's 33, 34. No, he's only 31. I'd never really like Pete Alonso. He's a Met. Like I don't pay much attention to the Mets. He's not going to be an Orioles. So he hits a lot of bombs. That's all I know about Pete Alonso. He's good. He's a feared hitter. We don't need to do a deep dive on Pete Alonso, who he is. But when you do, it's like, yeah, like you don't see anything right now that shows he's slowing down anytime soon. We can talk about the end of the contract and how that could look like, but right now, like the bat speed there, it's elite bat speed still. It's not slowing down in the last couple of years. It's like top 2-3% in the league in expected slugging percentage and bat speed and all these other metrics. And like Zach mentioned, the durability there, it's like 21, 22 games in 6 non-COVID seasons that he's missed since turning pro. Like that's insane. That's going to help this lineup a lot. I feel like a lineup and organization that was so desperate for that leadership. This is the Pete Alonso, and I don't know anything about Pete Alonso, like the person, to be honest. But just even if he's just one of those guys where he is on the field every single day, that's going to be huge for some of these younger guys doing what he does. He's going to help lift this lineup a lot. And there's a lot of conversation. Mets fans are coping hard. I started seeing a little bit of that before I jumped on. Whatever. This lineup, and we can talk about the whole lineup in a little bit, but injecting that bat into the middle of this order is a game changer. Like he literally, I don't have the numbers here in front of the splits here, and I know Lindor and Soto were on that Mets roster as well, hitting around him, but like I feel like he put the Mets on his back pretty much down the stretch last year. And as a thank you, they didn't even bother to like fight to try to keep him, but whatever. He's here now. Yeah. The Orioles have just added 74 home runs from Taylor Ward and Pete Alonso they hit last season. And it instantly injected this massive amount of right-handed juice into a lineup that desperately needed it. Like if you're a left-handed free agent starter and you're thinking about signing with another AL East team, like you might want to reconsider when you look at this Orioles lineup, what it could look like next year.
Yeah, you hear that, Framber? Don't fight against us, fight with us. Yeah, I mean, and I think an unreported thing is like how much pressure is adding Taylor Ward and Pete Alonso to this lineup going to take off the young kids. Now, Westberg, Gunnar, Adley, Basayo, Beavers, these guys can, or Holiday, man, our lineup is awesome, potentially. Just takes a lot of pressure off when you know those guys are going to be in the middle of the order. You know, they're pretty consistent. They're going to go out there and play. All I really knew about Pete Alonso coming into this, now I'm like scrambling to find out more about him, is that I thought he was a cringy goofball in the home run derbies. And I was rooting against him every single time I watched it. But he has this weird, like, goofball, definitely seems like a goofy, cringy, but also authentic kind of guy. Like, I think that I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to find, but I think that I think he's going to be a good clubhouse presence is basically what I'm trying to say. He's into the game. He's blue collar. Like, I don't think he's any kind of diva whatsoever. Like, yeah, you might not want to hang out with him, but you want him on your bench, rooting for you on the baseball team.
I decided to look this up to see what Nick was talking about in the second half, and he's right. Alonso had a rough July, but then his numbers in August: 28 games, 300 average, 9 homers, 925 OPS. 25 games in September and October, 293 average, 921 OPS, 7 home runs. So while that team was collapsing, Alonso continued to produce down the stretch. And I have to think that the Orioles looked at that a little bit, because one of the problems that the lineup had last year was that when it was cold, the bottom just completely fell out. And there was no real floor raiser there. Now, obviously, you didn't bring in Pete Alonso to raise the floor of the lineup, but it feels like this is a guy that, you know, if Colton Cowser is going through like a 3-for-30 stretch, or Gunnar Henderson is not hitting, or Jackson Holiday is slumping, this is kind of the guy that, you know, okay, he might go 1-for-4 with, you know, a strikeout or two on a bad night, but that one hit could be really meaningful. Or this is the guy that's going to be steady all year long, that is going to keep us in games when the rest of the lineup, and I agree with you, Bob, when the rest of the lineup is down, or when those guys are feeling a little bit of pressure, having Alonso here is going to be the thing that keeps the pressure off.
Yeah, and earnest was the word I was searching for earlier. But yeah, no, that's a great point. I think, I want to read a Bobby Jones comment on Discord that I thought was great. He said, "Forgive me, I'm just so giddy. This lineup has, 2 potential Rookie of the Years, Beavers and Basayo, an MVP candidate, Gunnar, a legit home run champ contender, Alonso, a guy that should have won Rookie of the Year less than 2 years ago, Colton Cowser, and 2 1-1s in Holiday and Adley. That doesn't even mention Taylor Ward, Kobe Mayo, who is still here for the moment. But yeah, and then I saw somewhere else that Alonso 46th overall pick is the lowest draft pick in our projected starting lineup, other than Basayo, who obviously signed internationally. So yeah, this lineup has the potential to be a lot of fun, and I think with some good injury luck and, like we said, this protection alluded to these younger guys, I like our chances of reaching that potential.
Yeah, to maybe calm it down a little bit, which is hard to do right now on day one, but especially you got Jeff Passan, say what you will about his tweet, but calling this lineup a wrecking crew, that was a lot of fun. But it is this, like, Colton Cowser playing next year with non-broken bones in his body. Like, Jordan Westberg just staying on the field. Hopefully some of those issues were identified this offseason and he's on the field more. Jackson Holiday took a step forward last year. He's still only barely 22 years old, if he's even 22 yet. He's still a young guy that can take another big step forward as well. Gunnar missed all of spring training last year and got off to that slow start. Dylan Beavers, there are a lot of wild cards too. Like, we'll see Dylan Beavers, does he build on last year? Samuel Basayo, what does he look like? We know he struggled, but he had a lot thrown at him that first year. But what does he do? Can he take off in his first full year in the major leagues? Kobe Mayo, if he's still on this roster, does he build on September? Or what does he look like next year? I think there are a lot of wild cards here as well that could elevate this roster to a whole nother level. So I know last year we were stoked about this lineup, and every projection had the Orioles roster as a top 2, top 3 offense. Some even had like the top overall offense projected in baseball last year, and it turned out to be one of the worst offenses. But when you've completely revamped the hitting coaching side of this team, you got a new voice leading the way in Craig Albernaz. He's got a lot of fun toys. I'm sure he had a fun day today. He's got, I don't know how you set this lineup, but it's going to be a lot of fun doing so. It's hard not to get excited about the potential of this lineup. And that's not even mentioning Adley. Adley's another wild card. We don't need to get into Adley tonight, what to make of him and what he's going to look like next year. But that's another wild card. We know who he could potentially be. So yeah, it's sitting here looking at this roster right now and the addition of Pete Alonso and Taylor Ward. It is really hard to not get excited. Unfortunately, it's still only December 10th, and we have a long way to go before spring training, but it's a lot better now than it was at the end of the year.
Yeah, Brandon Hyde's over in Tampa Bay. Like, yeah, Mike, you couldn't have done this a year sooner. Key Remix in the chat says, would love to hear how you compare Santander, what he brought to the lineup versus Polar Bear. I think that's a fair comparison. I think a guy that can sit in the 3-hole of the lineup and be pretty consistent, at least Santander's last 2 or 3 years here, we're kind of that. Hit 40-some home runs the one year. I like that. But, yeah, looking at the downside a little bit, reining it back in, I think ideally you would have done like 4-year deal for Alonso. You add that 5th. Maybe in years 4 or 5, he's strictly DH. Maybe he's fallen off a little bit. But I don't think this is like Chris Davis territory we need to worry about too much, because I think either way, he's going to hit the ball hard. His bat speed's not going to fall off that much that fast. He'll be 35 by the time the contract ends. That's not ancient. So I think last couple years, he might be a DH that just, bats like 240, hits 30 home runs, and maybe he's 5th or 6th in the lineup instead of 3rd or 4th. But yeah, price you pay.
All right, everyone, let's talk about drinking and driving, a decision that will change your whole world. Things will never be the same once you get a DUI, because legal fees, time in court are just the beginning. Getting into a crash is another way your world could be irreversibly changed after drinking and driving. Your vehicle may not be the only thing that gets damaged in that crash. You could face a life-altering injury or even death. But you're not the only one who could face those consequences. Your decision to drink and drive could permanently change someone else's world, whether you injure them or leave their loved ones grieving. The next time you're out drinking, call a rideshare, a taxi, a sober friend, or a designated sober driver. Always plan for a safe ride home. The only decision that will change your world for the better is the decision to call for a sober ride. It's never worth it to drive drunk. Don't risk it. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
This is Michael Rosenbaum. Hey, folks, let me tell you that drinking and driving is a decision that will change your whole world. Things will never be the same once you get a DUI, because legal fees and time in court are just the beginning. Getting into a crash is another way your world could be irreversibly changed after drinking and driving. Your vehicle may not be the only thing that gets damaged in that crash. You could face a life-altering injury or even death. But you're not the only one who could face those consequences. Your decision to drink and drive could permanently change someone else's world, whether you injure them or leave their loved ones grieving. The next time you're out drinking, call a rideshare, a taxi, a sober friend, or a designated sober driver. Always plan for a safe ride home. The only decision that will change your world for the better is the decision to call for a sober ride. It's never worth it to drive drunk. Don't risk it. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
And by that point, I don't think the $31 million is going to be that big of a burden on the payroll. And one thing I would point out, I'm glad you mentioned Chris Davis, Bob, because the last time the Orioles did give out a big contract, it was to a slugging first baseman, and it worked out terribly. This is just a very quick snapshot that I took of Chris Davis the season before he signed that contract extension. Batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, all dropped considerably from 2015 to 2016. Home runs dropped as well. So there were actually signs of decline already in Davis before the Orioles basically bid against themselves and gave him that massive contract extension. Alonso, when you look at the batted ball data, had one of the best, if not the best season of his career last year, set a career high in batting average. So really, any way that you slice Alonso's season last year, it was one of the best of his career, whereas Davis had a fine but somewhat down year from what he had done previously right before signing that big contract.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, Davis had such an up and down career, was pretty lauded coming up, then was almost looked at as a bust before the Orioles traded for him. They brought him back to life. He had a dip in, what was it, 2013. He went down, came back up in 2014, or maybe it was different years. But yeah, Alonso, his consistency is honestly what impresses me the most, just taking a little bit of a deeper dive into his career to date.
Yeah, and I'm not worried at all about this contract and how it ends up. Like, I'm worried about 2026 right now, winning a ring next season. I don't care what year 4, year 5 of the deal looks like right now. Like you guys said, it's not going to hamstring this franchise in any way financially by the end of it. Like, the core is here now, and you're supplementing it with a star, a bona fide star. He was third. I did pull it up and look. Only Kyle Schwarber and Aaron Judge have more home runs over the last like half a decade than Pete Alonso. The guy stays on the baseball field. He stays on the baseball field and hits a lot of home runs. 2 things that the Orioles did not do last year. So yeah, like the core is here. The core is still super young, cheap, controllable. You're supplementing it with a star here. This is not a knock at all on the development of this organization and the hitting development. It's what they need to do. And I'll happily record the episode when we're in 2030, when we're complaining about his decline, when I've got pictures of me at Camden Yards during the World Series run that they're going to have for the next couple of years. Like, the Dodgers aren't worrying about 5 years from now. Like, nobody, the Yankees aren't worrying about 5 years from now. Like this, yeah, they overpaid. Maybe the contract isn't the most beautiful contract, but they got their stud that they're going to plug into the middle of this lineup. And the Baltimore Orioles are 10 times better today than they were yesterday.
And if this is a serious ownership group and they're not just like, all right, we're going to do this because we want to push our window to the next 2 or 3 seasons. If they're a legit ownership group that wants to continue to have a 200 million, whatever, around a higher payroll and be legitimate contenders year in and year out, the way that Mike Elias has stated they would like to do, obviously you'll have ebbs and flows. Then yeah, when a time comes, if you need to trade out of the contract or have him play a lesser role, then that's what it's going to be.
Let's get into one aspect of this, which is one area where there's a couple of areas where we're going to look at how it's going to affect the rest of the offseason. But I want to start with the most immediate question, I think, on a lot of fans' minds, which is, what are the Orioles going to do with all of these right-hitting first baseman DH type bats? Now, none of your in-house options are blocking Pete Alonso, so let's just move on to Ryan Mountcastle, Tyler O'Neill, and Kobe Mayo. Mountcastle was surprisingly tendered a contract by the Orioles, but not looking at a big financial commitment. Per MLB trade rumors, projected to make $7 million in arbitration this year before he hits free agency after the 2026 season. Tyler O'Neill, who a lot of people have started to look at as a bust, actually does not cost too much money over the next 2 years. $33 million over the remaining 2 years of his contract, $16.5 million each in the next 2 seasons. Kobe Mayo, meanwhile, would probably be the guy I think it is fair to say you are only moving if you are filling a significant hole on the roster, ideally getting back a player who has multiple years of team control, because he's not even arbitration eligible until after the 2027 season and will not reach free agency until after the 2031 season. So this is a guy that if the Orioles want to keep around for the next 5 years, they've got the option to do that. The most immediate solution to clearing up some of the surplus is probably to trade Ryan Mountcastle. But there are multiple ways they could go about it, and a lot of it may just come down to what they believe they can fill in free agency for the rotation versus what they have to go get in a trade, in which case moving Mayo, I think, becomes more likely than trading Ryan Mountcastle or Tyler O'Neill.
I personally think it's possible that all 3 of those guys get traded this offseason. I honestly think 2 out of the 3 will be gone. I don't really see any way around that. Yeah, sure, you could keep Mayo. He's got options. Don't do that to this kid. I mean, he's been blocked. He's had his development and chance at the majors. And yeah, he did not light the world on fire right away, but he worked it. His September was the best on the team. And I love the upside still of him as a first base DH. Maybe they teach him right field. Maybe they trade Tyler O'Neill. They pay half his salary and trade him to the Royals and trade Mountcastle for a reliever. I think those are the two most likely things to happen. Well, actually, I think the most likely thing to happen is Mountcastle's either cut at a certain point or traded for a reliever or a insignificant minor leaguer. Tyler O'Neill, I think, is the most likely to stay, but I do think it's possible they could find a taker for him. Mayo, unless they get rid of O'Neill and Mountcastle and teach him right field, and he could be right field, DH, first base, fill in 4 or 5 times a week, which I'm okay with that. But honestly, for his own sake, like, trade him for middle rotation starter to upper rotation starter, send him to a team where he can just play every day and live up to his potential, and help us out by bringing in a nice starting pitcher. Maybe it's Freddie Peralta. Maybe it's send him back to home in Florida to Miami for Edward Cabrera, Sandy Alcantara. But yeah, I feel bad for Kobe Mayo. I still think there's a chance he's here in 2026. But I think ultimately Tyler O'Neill's going to platoon with Dylan Beavers in right field. Mayo will be used in a trade for a starting pitcher, and Ryan Mountcastle will be traded for an optionable reliever or something like that.
Yeah, it's flexibility now. Like, there's kind of like comfort in whichever direction you want to go now. I feel like you could move Tyler O'Neill, and I hate to say this, riding this high or the Pete Alonso signing, but there is a weird part of me that kind of wants to see Tyler O'Neill stay and see if you can capture some of that 2021, 2024 seasons. I know he's only had 2 healthy years in his life, but maybe
Bash Brothers, O'Neill and Alonso.
Like, I want to see. A little part of me does want to see that. But yeah, the Reds, like, would the Reds be interested in any of these guys? Like, I don't know, but it does give you options. I think I like John's point that he made last week about bringing Ryan Mountcastle back when everybody's like, it doesn't make sense. Didn't make sense for me either. And he's like, he's there. So, like, now you can, if you want to trade him for a reliever, if you just need to cut him, like, you can do whatever you can there. But yeah, if you want to go out, hopefully, ideally, we're signing. I don't know how to gauge the starting pitching market at this point, but if they do want to sign one of these top guys, fantastic. And maybe you find a way to keep Kobe Mayo in the system and work him in like you talked about. And you don't need to trade him for pitching because you go off and sign a big bat, and maybe you can work out an alternative deal for a starter that doesn't involve Kobe Mayo. But also, if there's a guy out there in the market that the Orioles are targeting that they would prefer to have, then you do have that option of, well, we've got Pete Alonso, we've got Samuel Basallo, we've still got Ryan Mountcastle here on the roster. We have plenty of options. We feel comfortable now. Kobe Mayo isn't untouchable anymore. Maybe he was last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but now we feel comfortable if it is Miami. All these talks of the Edward Cabrera, that feels different. That felt different yesterday. You just talk about something in the air. That felt like that's real close. Roster Resource says right now the Marlins have Graham Pauley and Connor Norby at the corners. And honestly, if you're going to trade Kobe, I would love for him to go to Miami. Maybe he doesn't want to. I don't know. But he gets to go back home to Florida. He reunites with Stowers and Norby, who we know he has great relationships with. That was the only way we got Connor Norby to loosen up when he came on our show, was to bring up Kobe Mayo's name. So, great relationship there. Like, that would make a lot of sense. I mentioned the Reds. I still like Nick Lodolo a lot. What would it take to get him? Would that take Kobe Mayo? Could they work out some Tyler O'Neill deal? The Reds feel like plug and play. I could see the Reds wanting to capture 1 year of Tyler O'Neill to try to get them to the next level there in the NL. And yeah, like, do we see another Corbin Burns-esque trade with the Brewers to land Freddie Peralta? And question for you guys: would you rather pay up? Because of Freddie Peralta's salary, I would imagine you're still gonna have to pay a hefty price, probably a price that some people may feel uncomfortable with. But would you rather pay up for that 1 year of Freddie Peralta, and maybe it does take Kobe Mayo, but pay up that and risk him not landing an extension with the Orioles? Or would you rather pay up a bit more for the multiple years of control in Mackenzie Gore? Because for me, I think it's a pretty easy answer for me.
Let's see. To be honest, I've been a little bit down on Gore this offseason because I think it's going to cost more than I'd be comfortable with. But like I was telling Zach on our live stream last night, if we got him, even if it was too much and I didn't like the trade from that perspective, I mean, it's still Mackenzie Gore. And if he's your third or fourth starter, that's pretty awesome. If you're able to sign another guy on top of that, I think personally, I'd put it Freddie Peralta number one, because I think it will still cost because he's only making $8 million next year. I'd put him up there at the top because the fact that he signed that terrible contract for him, maybe he is more amenable to an extension, or maybe that makes him less amenable. I don't know, but he'll be eligible for a qualifying offer like Burns was as well. Then I'd probably say Gore under that. Edward Cabrera is interesting to me. I just think it's so super risky. I'm not against it, but man, he's pretty injury prone, and if the walks come back, I just think there's more risk there for sure. But I think there's plenty of options out there. I think there's even names that we probably don't even know that are available. Maybe you can get. I'd rather honestly Joe Ryan is number one. I know the Twins all of a sudden are saying they're not selling, but if I'm going to up my proposal to get a Mackenzie Gore type, I'd rather just go maybe another extra mile and get Joe Ryan.
Yeah, Joe Ryan's been my top trade target the whole offseason. And even with the Twins coming out and saying that publicly, I still would be at least kicking the tires to see what you have to give up to get him. As I think about this, I am conflicted myself. I kind of lean towards going with Peralta, and the one reason is that the starting pitching market is deep enough and it is moving slow enough right now that you could probably still get a good starter on a 3 or 4 year contract in the next few weeks. And Peralta, to me, has a much more immediate high impact return than you're going to get from Gore, who I think is a good pitcher, and I think he's going to have a really good career. But I also look at that and I question, are the Nationals effectively selling high by trading Gore now? Whereas with Peralta, I think you could actually get him for a little bit less than what it took the Orioles to get Corbin Burns a few years ago, because Peralta does not have a Cy Young Award on his resume. Burns did. I think that does make a little bit of a difference. And the other thing is that Peralta, at least at last check, not a Scott Boras client. So maybe that changes the calculus a little bit for whether or not you can extend him. As Bob said, it's quite possible that he's going to want to test the open market after signing such a team-friendly deal with the Brewers years ago. But there's a lot of upside to bringing in Freddie Peralta that I would be really happy to see the Orioles go make that move.
And real quick, maybe because he's only making $8 million, that leaves some room for, hey, if you get Framber Valdez, Freddie Peralta, and maybe Kyle Tucker's market's not going the way he wants it, it's like, hey, we'll give you a big deal with the opt-out after year 2, reset your market, or even after year 1. And maybe they do that. Maybe that's a little too pie in the sky, but I don't know. That lower salary for Peralta might help them be able to do other things.
Just so many options, but it does feel like, unlike last year, it maybe does feel like this is much more attainable. But yeah, I would, daydreaming like a Freddie Peralta and his 160, 170 innings, 200 strikeouts, added that to this rotation, and I'd feel a lot more comfortable about then bringing in Michael King on top of that. Kyle Bradish sitting there, Trevor Rogers, if I start daydreaming about these starting pitchers, we're going to go to a whole nother level. And I think the Pete Alonso was more than enough for one day. So, but it all provides options. The Pete Alonso move provides options where if the Orioles want to go out now, they can still go out and spend money. They've proven they're going to do that now. They can go out and sign another big guy. And, if they want to trade Kobe Mayo now for a starter, which everyone assumes they will, which I kind of get the vibe that maybe that means they won't, because that seems like the obvious move. But, and this offseason has been so unpredictable up to this point, but it just feels like Kobe Mayo maybe isn't untouchable now. And how does that change, or does it change any conversations the Orioles are having already with these trade talks? I don't know.
All I know is get ready for Bob's Stream off-season version 3.0 tomorrow morning. I'm definitely motivated to write that pretty soon.
Let's go over now to a different topic. And this is something else that happened on Wednesday, albeit with a lot less buzz around it than the Pete Alonso signing, and that was the Rule 5 draft. And if you listen to our show a few weeks ago, you know that we broke down who the Orioles might or might not protect, who they might ultimately lose in the Rule 5 draft if they don't protect them. The Orioles ultimately gave 40-man roster spots right after that to reliever Cameron Foster and outfielder Reed Trimble, effectively protecting them from the Major League phase of the Rule 5 draft. They did, however, lose a prospect on Wednesday, and that was Carter Baumler, who was chosen with the 5th pick in the Major League phase by the Pittsburgh Pirates and then subsequently flipped to the Rangers. So the Pirates basically draft Baumler for the Rangers. Now, even though Baumler was traded, the Rangers are still subject to the same roster restrictions that they would be if they had chosen him themselves, which is that he has to stick on their roster for the full season or be offered back to the Orioles. And Baumler's story is an interesting one. Over a slot pick by the Orioles in the 5th round of the COVID-shortened 2020 draft, we did not see much of him on the mound for the next 5 seasons because of Tommy John surgery and then a myriad of injuries that followed after that. 2025, while he did spend a little bit of time hurt, he wound up really putting together his first full healthy season, primarily as a reliever, and put up very good numbers between Aberdeen and Chesapeake. We broke down the chances that Baumler might be protected. We didn't think that there was much of a chance, or we kind of gave it like a 50-50 chance that the Orioles would protect him, but it seemed like a guy that could get chosen if he was left unprotected. And now he is part of the Rangers organization. So, Nick, I'll start with you. Overall, I think the Orioles come out of the Rule 5 draft okay, losing just Baumler and Justin Armbruster in minor league phase, which we'll discuss in a moment. But still, do you feel like the Orioles might have let a intriguing prospect slip away for nothing?
Yeah, but like we were all well aware of the risk with Baumler and his health. Like, when we talked through the who to protect, who not to protect, I initially had Carter Baumler on my list. I went Weston, Foster, and Carter Baumler before going just Weston as my final answer there at the end of the show. But like the velo was back, the stuff across the board was back, the results were there as well. But I ultimately felt comfortable leaving him off just because of his injury history. And I know injured pitchers are a very common pick in the Rule 5 draft, but I figured, all right, there's a difference between a guy coming off Tommy John surgery who you can slow play and taking a gamble on Carter Baumler, who his injury history goes back to 2020. And even before that, the last full year of baseball he played was like his junior year of high school. He's in his mid-20s now. It's been a long time. So I felt comfortable leaving him unprotected. And just the fact that it was just a couple of innings at the AA level, I mean, good for the Rangers. I think it was Rangers beat writer Evan Grant had it before the draft. He said that he heard that the Pirates are going to be picking for somebody else and to remember the name Carter Baumler. And then like 30 minutes later, Carter Baumler goes to the Rangers. So he was right there. The key is health. If he can stay healthy, which was a big ask, I think the stuff should play in like 1 inning stints in the big leagues, and they can still slow play him. Like no one's going to question him going on the IL 2-3 times next year due to shoulder discomfort or arm fatigue to help get him through the year. So happy he gets a chance. Wish him all the best. And if we see him back in this organization, I hope it's because he got squeezed out of a roster spot and not because he's hurt again in spring. So.
Exactly. I still think there's probably 75% chance that he comes back, but honestly, I hope he kills it. I hope he goes out there and performs extremely well. And yeah, I also hope that he gets squeezed out and comes back and we can slot him into the AAA bullpen and work from there. But I think it's cool he got picked. I'd still think it's justifiable to take the risk and leave him off just because, I mean, that is a big jump. The stuff will play in the majors, but mentally that is a huge jump to make and get big leaguers out on a consistent basis in the major leagues. So I think it's fine. Even if he doesn't come back, it's what good organizations lose these types of players in the Rule 5 draft sometimes. And that's just how it goes. You only have so many spots. I'm glad that Cameron Weston is still here. I'm glad that Judd Fabian is still here. Really a great day with keeping all of our guys in the organization for the most part, the inverse of 2024.
All right, people, serious question time. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state. That means even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, well, you're wrong. If you're high, they can tell. Your friends can tell. Your coworkers can tell. Even your parents can tell. Everyone can tell. So what makes you think that law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high? You'd be wrong. They can tell too. Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different, and driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by NHTSA.
This is Michael Rosenbaum. Hey, folks, let me tell you that drinking and driving is a decision that will change your whole world. Things will never be the same once you get a DUI, because legal fees and time in court are just the beginning. Getting into a crash is another way your world could be irreversibly changed after drinking and driving. Your vehicle may not be the only thing that gets damaged in that crash. You could face a life-altering injury or even death. But you're not the only one who could face those consequences. Your decision to drink and drive could permanently change someone else's world, whether you injure them or leave their loved ones grieving. The next time you're out drinking, call a rideshare, a taxi, a sober friend, or a designated sober driver. Always plan for a safe ride home. The only decision that will change your world for the better is the decision to call for a sober ride. It's never worth it to drive drunk. Don't risk it. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
Yeah, I think that it's easy to look back on this in hindsight and say, oh, of course the Orioles weren't going to protect Ballmer, but they had already committed 2 40-man roster spots to relievers that were Rule 5 eligible that had AAA time in Anthony Nunez and Cameron Foster. And I think with Ballmer, it was just a little bit of a jump to look at him and say, okay, he just pitched in AA this year. He has no AAA experience. He has this long injury history. And this is thinking far ahead, but you could have found yourself in a Seth Johnson situation all over again, where he's on the 40-man roster, he stalls a little bit, and then all of a sudden you get to a point where it's like, all right, you got to make a decision about him here sooner rather than later. And the Orioles, of course, moved Johnson for Gregory Soto. It's a 2024 deadline. That's, again, a kind of a hypothetical long-term scenario that could have played out, but I think it was one that you had to keep in mind with Ballmer. So the way that the offseason was unfolding, I think it kind of does make sense they didn't protect Ballmer. Now, as for his chances, like you guys said, I wish him well. I hope that he gets every opportunity to make the Rangers out of spring training. And you're right, Nick. I think that if he does make the roster, it's going to be very easy for them to slow play him this year.
Yeah, just the fact that for everything he's been going through, he's one of those guys, you know, the Orioles, some of the guys they trade away, like I haven't paid attention to what, Matt Horvath or those guys doing down in Tampa Bay. There are a lot of guys, or I don't think about them again, but there are a lot of other guys as well who, like, we follow their development for years now. Some of them we have on the show, some we don't, some we interact with off air, and you get to know them a little bit more. And some of those guys, like I do follow closely after they leave the Orioles organization, unless they're playing Baltimore, obviously, then hope you get shelled. But in the meantime, like, he's one of those guys that I'll be paying attention when February rolls around, spring training games come on. Carter Ballmer's taking the mound. I'm firing up MLB TV and I'm gonna check him out because I genuinely do wish him all the best, because it's been a grind. I know Steve Molesky had a great piece. If anyone's subscribed to Steve Molesky's Substack, if you're not, go subscribe. But I know he interviewed Carter Ballmer during the season, and he has a fantastic piece there. And you could feel the relief. And a lot of credit to Steve and his writing, but you could feel the relief from Ballmer in reading that piece, that what a healthy season down in the minors meant for him. And now he gets a shot at the major leagues. It's pretty cool.
In the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft, as I mentioned a moment ago, the Orioles lose right-hander Justin Armbruster. Armbruster was a guy that had cruised through the lower levels of the minor leagues, but struggled when he got his first extended taste at AAA with Norfolk in 2024. Still, there was some underlying pitch data, particularly with the fastball, that led us to believe that maybe he could be a bit of a bounce-back candidate going into last season. But ultimately, he had just 3 outings before going down with a season-ending lat surgery. Now, this is where it's important to note, and I know I've covered this on the show before, but I'll just put this in as a reminder. The minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft is treated differently than the major league phase. So when a player is chosen in the minor league phase, they're gone. There's no roster restrictions for the Mets to keep Armbruster in their organization all year. And it's also worth noting that the process for protecting players from the minor league phase is different than the major league phase. So that list of players that are protected from the minor league phase is never made public. But given that the Orioles had, I think, around 40 players eligible for the Rule 5 draft this year and only were able to protect a handful of them, they still didn't lose that many guys in the minor league phase, even when you factor in who they protected from there.
Yeah, I knew Armbruster was going to be gone. I didn't see him as a guy being protected. Hearing some things off in the wind this morning, I knew Armbruster was out the door. Following that Gene Pinto, Zach Peak path from last year, with no roster restrictions, you bring him in. It costs you nothing, a few dollars to bring him in. And his lat surgery is at the very beginning of the year. And I think he's throwing off flat ground that I know of. A couple of weeks ago, I saw a video of him throwing off flat ground, I think down in Sarasota. So he's still probably a little ways away in his recovery, but they can slow play him back. He can pitch in high A and double A if the Mets want him to. And if he comes back from the injury and looks good and shows flashes, because I'm pretty sure, I would imagine he hits minor league free agency after this year, just like Peak and Pinto did. So if he comes back from the injury and he shows flashes, the Mets can re-sign him to another minor league deal for 2027, and they got a minor league Rule 5 draft win when he's AAA depth for them in 2027. But if he comes back from the injury and doesn't look good, then he just hits minor league free agency. And it's zero risk in taking an arm like Armbruster with his AAA experience in the minor league phase. I figured he was pretty much as good as gone, especially considering like you mentioned, the number of guys that they needed to protect in the minor league phase. Tights were going to be spot in the AAA phase as well.
Spots were going to be tight. Justin Armbruster. He'll never be just a guy to me. I think he ended up in the right organization. Honestly, the Mets are really pretty good at pitching development. I'm sure he'll get the 3 fastball mix, 4-seamer, sinker, cutter action going on. And I think he actually has a decent chance to at least make the majors out of a bullpen and make a major league debut, as not a lot of people do. I'll miss Armbruster. He was a fun interview on here. Stuff was good. Unfortunately, just didn't work out in this organization. And there just really wasn't much room for him regardless. But shout out to Ryan Watson, who got selected in the Rule 5 draft by the A's out of the Giants organization. And I feel like I heard some other familiar names throughout the day too. But awesome for Ryan Watson. Hope he gets a real chance in Sacramento.
Good luck.
That's a good point. Watson, a former Orioles prospect, and now
former
we'll go
minor league pitcher of the year.
That's right. Yeah, Orioles on the verge, minor league pitcher of the year, and Orioles minor league pitcher of the year. So I have to go back and look, but I think the year that we gave it to Watson, we had co-winners, and the other winner was Justin Armbruster.
I think so. The true crime in today, though, was how did the Orioles not make at least one pick in the minor league phase?
That confused me, too.
A free minor leaguer. Look at us being greedy. We got Pete Alonso, but we need the free minor leaguer to talk about tonight. I don't know. I feel like if you need another sign, as many people who don't even know that this process exists, if you need another sign that this front office has evolved, not even forget the major league phase of the Rule 5 draft. That is what it is. But not taking a free minor leaguer, not even some random Dominican summer league kid they scouted 8 years ago. Nelvis Ochoa. If you know that name, I love you. You're a hardcore listener. You are in the right place. But not even a Nelvis Ochoa pick this year. Come on, Mike. Give us something.
Yeah, seriously, man. It blew my mind. This used to be the highlight of the winter meetings for this podcast and for this organization. And the dichotomy of, if you go to the main page on MLB.com, you have to scroll past the article that says Pete Alonso signs with the Orioles to get to the live stream of the Rule 5 draft, where they didn't make any picks. Crazy.
Yeah, it tells you how things have evolved when the two big shows of our offseason every year were which players are going to non-tender, which we kind of brought back this year, and who are they going to pick in the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft. How much coverage did we give Nolan Hoffman that year?
Hey, Mariners fans were pissed. That was a good pick.
I remember that. Yeah, that's sort of a sign that not only did they not pick a player in the minor league phase, but at like 10 o'clock this morning, I think they were one of a handful of teams that had full 40-man roster spots leading up to the draft and weren't going to be able to make a pick in the major league phase unless they made a subsequent move ahead of time.
It's fine. We got Pete Alonso. And I think I don't know. Before Christmas break, we get another big move. Before everybody goes home takes a day or two off for Christmas. I think a trade.
In the next 2 weeks, I think we're going to get big free agent signing and a trade. I think Framber Valdez signs in the next week or two, and we make that trade for the other pitcher. And then we'll see what else happens after the new year.
I get the feeling we're going to see something. And I didn't necessarily think we're going to see a move in the winter meeting. So we'll see. But we'll go on now to the last bit of news that came out of the winter meetings, which if you are a member of our Patreon community or you got a taste of the live stream during the draft lottery as a preview, you heard Bob and I react in real time to the news that the Orioles will be picking 7th in next year's draft, in the first round of next year's draft. Despite odds that were a little bit higher than that, they had the 4th best odds of getting the number 1 pick going into Tuesday evening's lottery, yet end up with the 7th pick overall. And Bob, I know we were disappointed at the time about that. How are you feeling now?
I've coped a little bit. I think still disappointed for sure. But again, Pete Alonso signing has definitely helped take the sting out of that a little bit. And my coping mechanism is if the lottery wasn't here, the Orioles would pick 7th anyway. So it works out, I guess. And I don't know. I trust this. I think after you get top 2 or 3 picks, it's pretty much like 4 through 13 or whatever roundabouts is probably like not much difference other than bonus pool, which obviously helps, but I think we'll still be able to get a pretty good prospect out of that spot.
Yeah, Nick, you have already ramped up our draft coverage over our Substack, and I wanted to get your thoughts not just about this class, but some of the players that the Orioles are already linked to in very early mock drafts. Does this look like a year where the Orioles could possibly get value out of the 7th pick?
Yeah, I already love this class. I'm pulling up this thing real quick to speak to what we saw yesterday. Okay. Yeah, I think as it stands right now, it's December. So we're 2 months away from the start of the college season, the D1 college season. So this is going to change. At this point right now, Jace Laviolette was like the consensus 1-1, except for I think Pipeline wanted the clicks and had Ethan Holiday there. But then by the time the draft rolls around, the Orioles picking in the back end of the first round, and we were all clenched pretty hard when Jason Laviolette was still available, hoping the Orioles wouldn't take him. So, yeah, things can change. But last year's class, there just wasn't like that definitive 1-1. I think this year there is with Rock Chalowski. And I feel like this year the college hitters at the top, at 7, you're still going to get a stud. Maybe they go the high school route. I don't know. But college pitching just kind of seems like wait and see who pops. Like there's some fun guys at the top. If we're talking about getting crazy and this franchise changing, like you got names like Cameron Flukie from Coastal Carolina, Liam Peterson from Florida, guys who should go early and probably don't spend too much time in the minor leagues. I've written about a couple of guys that I really love that should be available, pitch their way up into like, I think the Orioles have pick 34 overall as their 2nd pick. Some guys who could be available there as well, but at the top of the class, man, it's the shortstop class is strong. Eric Becker at UVA, Tyler Bell at Kentucky, Chris Akopian, former Maryland star, Justin LeBron at Alabama, who doesn't want an Orioles LeBron jersey. Like there's some dudes, outfielders, a lot of tooled up outfielders out there as well. Yeah, I think the Orioles are in a strong position to land 2 studs the way the class looks right now. I'm working on a huge database of draft eligible players, only D1 players. I can't go to the high school stuff. My high school research will happen like 2 weeks before the draft, but notes, data, video, all this stuff on these guys, I'll release it when that's done in February. But the top of the class looks awesome. It looks very deep as well, specifically in the hitting department. Pitching again, we'll see, but yeah, as far as the draft coverage goes, like hopefully people enjoyed it last year. And if you did, and please let me know. I don't have exact plan how I want to do it this year, but if you have ideas, let me know. I'd love to hear it. I was able to configure the Substack. I figured out tags on the Substack, so we can organize stuff if we want to do that, if you guys are into that more. But there's an MLB draft section there at the top now. We can add more. I'll be going to more games this year as well. And yeah, we'll see how that ends up. And the early mock drafts were a lot of fun, and they had all different names. I think Joe Doyle had Eric Becker. I did a roundup. I was going to release it this morning, but Substack did not work all day. It kept giving me errors. But it looks like it's set, and I'll send this out tomorrow. It's Joe Doyle had Eric Becker, the UVA shortstop. Fun name there. I think MLB Pipeline had Derek Curiel. If you're not a huge fan of EBJ, maybe you're probably not going to like the Derek Curiel mock pick there from
Garrett,
LSU.
he's talking to you.
Yeah, he's probably not going to love the Derek Curiel. I think he had a 107 max EV last year. But his coach did comp him to Ichiro last year. We'll say that. And I think Baseball America had Sawyer Strohsnyder, fun name to say, from TCU.
Don't take him. I don't know anything about him. Do not take him.
He is tooled up. He was a freshman last year. I will say, just if you're looking to get into college baseball, watch TCU games. But the names were all over the place in every single one of them as of December 10th. Pretty fun. So, yeah, I'm sure the people who work in the organization in draft operations were pounding the table last night, not too happy, but Orioles are still going to be a good place in this draft class.
Also, we forgot to mention, we did not lose a draft pick for signing Pete Alonso, which usually happens when you sign one of these big players, but he was offered it last offseason, so didn't need to worry about that.
And if anyone was pounding the table last night, sure wasn't on that awkward draft stage where everybody sat there like zombies while the draft lottery was going on. Most painful process in baseball.
I don't even know why they needed to be there. I feel like after they introduced them, you didn't even see them anymore.
No, there was absolutely no reason at all. You could have just had the host just tell us what's up.
What do those guys even care? They don't care about the draft at this
There's
point.
no attachment to these organizations.
Whatever, they're trying. I think you guys hit the nail on the head. They're not the NFL yet, but it is a sign that they are trying to grow, which I don't want to give kudos to MLB, but little kudos there.
And for that does it for this episode. We will be back next week. Hopefully we'll have some more big news to break down. In the meantime, you can check us out on many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Blue Sky. We are also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon and sign up to become a member today. And in fact, this holiday season, you can gift a Patreon membership to the Orioles fan in your life. You can go month to month with the membership, custom month range, or save 15% on a yearly membership right now. So be sure to check that out on patreon.com. And we are coming up on our top 50 prospects countdown. That's going to begin in early January. One prospect a day for 50 days, exclusive to paying members of our Patreon community. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening. Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.